The hum of evening traffic echoed through downtown Metroville. Neon signs flickered, casting streaks of color across rain-slick sidewalks. Street vendors shouted over the din, and the hospital loomed in the distance, a glowing fortress of, In a back alley 3 blocks away, Zoe Calder, 17, crouched over a half-dismantled motorcycle in her father's old garage. The place smelled of oil, rust, and ozone, her favorite scent. Her fingers, smudged with grease, worked delicately, as if the machine were alive. A symphony of clicks, whirs, and soft clanks filled the space as she adjusted the carburetor. She reached for her tablet, loaded with schematics she'd reverse-engineered herself, when suddenly the world blinked. Darkness. The power died without warning. Streetlights went out. The entire block was swallowed in shadow. Then a low rumble surged through the ground, followed by a distant boom, a muffled explosion, the kind that didn't belong to fireworks. Zoe froze. The quiet was unnatural, too still. Her instincts, finely tuned after years of tinkering with unstable machines, kicked in. She stepped outside. From the roof of her garage, she saw smoke rising in the direction of Metroville General. Then came the screaming. Emergency sirens remained silent. Zoe glanced at the satchel where she kept her emergency kit. Fuses, cables, insulated gloves. Her heart pounded. She didn't hesitate. She grabbed the bag, locked up the garage, and sprinted into the night. As she ran, she passed frozen traffic. Lights. People huddled around dead phones, parents clutching frightened kids. No one was moving toward the hospital. They were all moving away. That's when she knew something had gone very, very wrong, and no one else was going to fix it. Inside Metroville General, chaos teetered on the edge of collapse. The power had gone out 5 minutes ago. Backup generators were supposed to kick in within seconds. They hadn't. The emergency lighting, flickering and dim, barely illuminated the hallways. Nurses scrambled with flashlights, weaving between stretchers and wheeled monitors like ghosts in a storm. In the ICU, machines beeped weakly on their last battery reserves. A neonatal nurse cranked a hand pump attached to an infant's breathing tube, sweat pouring down her temple. A trauma surgeon barked orders in the ER, lit only by the light of a single phone. One of the residents whispered to another, "What if we lose power to the OR? What do we do then?" Downstairs in the generator room, a small team of staff stood around a smoking hulk of machinery. The old diesel generator had overloaded and burned out. Its casing was scorched, coolant dripping onto the floor. The building engineer, a fill-in with barely a month on the job, had his hands on his knees, face pale. "We need someone who can fix this," he muttered, shaking his head. "But the chief engineer's out of state, and even if we call tech support, what? We wait hours? We don't have hours." A nurse from upstairs radioed in. "We're losing the ventilator in pediatric ICU. We need power now." Then, from the stairwell, a new voice cut through the panic. "I can help." They turned. A girl stood at the threshold, no older than 17, hoodie streaked with oil, work gloves in one hand, a heavy steel toolbox in the other. She stepped forward with quiet confidence. Her face was young, but her eyes were sharp, the kind that measured and calculated. "I heard the generator blow. I know diesel systems, and especially old ones like this. If you let me look, I might be able to restart it or rig a bypass." The staff looked at her like she was a ghost. "You're... what? A student?" "I'm a mechanic," she said, simply. "And I don't need credentials to know a cracked regulator line when I see one." A long beat. The fill-in engineer rubbed his temples, clearly out of ideas. Another alarm went off in the hallway. A flat line. "Let her try," a nurse said. "What choice do we have?" Zoe nodded, set her toolbox down, and knelt beside the broken generator. She ran her hands over the warped components like a surgeon mapping an incision. Under her breath, she murmured, "Okay, old girl, Let's see what secrets you're hiding." And with that, the countdown to salvation began. The generator room smelled of scorched metal and desperation. Zoe crouched beside the heavy machine, her flashlight wedged between her teeth, illuminating a tangle of charred wires, cracked seals, and blown circuits. Sweat glistened on her forehead, but her hands didn't tremble. They moved with precision, fast, confident, purposeful. This wasn't the first time she'd had to rebuild something with time and lives on the line. Behind her, 2 hospital staff hovered nervously. "Should we get her something? Tools?" "She brought tools," the fill-in engineer whispered, watching as she yanked open an access panel and muttered, "Ugh, who designed this routing? Someone who hates logic and airflow?" Zoe pulled out a scorched relay switch. "This one's gone. Probably took the startup controller with it." She rummaged through her kit and pulled out a capacitor salvaged from an old scooter ignition module. It wasn't designed for hospital-grade equipment, but it would work. It had to. The lights flickered again. Someone upstairs screamed. A nurse came over the intercom. "Patient in cardiac arrest. Defib station offline. Requesting manual crash." Cart. Zoe looked up, locking eyes with the engineer. "How long before total battery loss?" He swallowed. "Maybe 4 minutes. 5 if we shut down the elevator system." "We don't have 5. She stripped back insulation with her multi-tool. "I'm going to build a bypass relay using whatever's still functional, but you're going to have to jumpstart the engine when I tell you. No hesitation." "Wait, jumpstart it? With what?" She looked him dead in the eye. "The defibrillator." "The defibrillator? You want the lights back on or not?" Zoe turned her focus to the wiring again, her brain a blur of calculations, diagrams, memory. She rerouted a damaged voltage regulator using IV tubing for insulation, replaced a busted fuel line with reinforced oxygen tubing, crimped wires using surgical clamps. Her tools clicked and sparked, tiny fireworks in the dim. She could feel the heartbeat of the generator, like a wounded animal beneath her fingers, waiting for someone to bring it back. She turned. "Get ready. You've got 10 seconds once I connect this to jump it." "10 seconds?" the engineer asked, panicking. "After that, the entire panel will fry. Or I will. Either way, it's now or never." She twisted 2 leads together, jammed the capacitor into place, and shouted, "Go!" The defibrillator paddles clamped to the starter coil. A nurse hit the button. A crack of electricity filled the room, a snap that lit up the walls like lightning. Then, a heartbeat. The generator coughed, rattled, then roared. Overhead, the emergency lights flared to life. The hallway monitors blinked back on. Upstairs, machines chirped, ventilators surged, heart monitors screamed back into action. For a second, the entire hospital held its breath, then exhaled. Applause broke out in the corridor. People wept, doctors hugged. Someone shouted, "She did it!" as the power surged through the building like hope reborn. But Zoe? She quietly packed up her tools. "Where are you going?" the nurse asked, stunned. "Back to the garage," Zoe said. "Still got a carburetor to fix." And before anyone could ask her name, she was gone, a shadow with a wrench. Morning broke over Metroville, painting the skyline gold and gray. News vans lined the street outside Metroville General. Reporters clambered over each other, broadcasting. Live in front of the still-smoking generator room window. A teenage girl, identity still unknown, is being hailed as the hero who single-handedly restored power during last night's city-wide blackout. Inside the hospital, staff huddled around TVs and break rooms, watching blurry security footage of a figure in a dark hoodie, face shadowed, toolbox in hand. "She looks so young," said a trauma nurse, sipping her coffee with shaking hands. But she moved like someone who'd been doing this her whole life. Doctors called her the ghost mechanic. Kids in the pediatric ward drew pictures of her. Capes, goggles, oversized wrenches. A legend was already forming. Metroville's mayor issued a public statement. Whoever you are, thank you. You saved lives. We owe you more than words. But across town, in a forgotten corner of the industrial district, Zoe Calder sat, quietly in her garage, her TV tuned low to the news. She watched the grainy footage of herself on the screen, then reached up and clicked it off. The garage fell into silence. On the wall behind her, blueprints were tacked up with precision, engines, drones, even a schematic for a microreactor far beyond public tech. A high-tech prototype drone whirred quietly in the corner, scanning her vitals. Zoe peeled off her hoodie and hung it on a hook. Beneath it, a patch on her jumpsuit read, Calder Industries, Research Division, Redacted Unit 09. In a nearby locked cabinet, fingerprint-coded, sat a folder labeled Zoe, C, Project HEIR, Unauthorized Inheritance, Clearance Revoked, because Zoe Calder wasn't just a mechanic. She was the runaway daughter of the world's most secretive engineering empire. A child prodigy hidden away by her father's corporation, groomed to inherit a dynasty until she disappeared at age 14. And now? She had no interest in reclaiming her birthright. She was building her own future, one piece at a time. And the world had no idea what was coming next.